Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Right to the Source. My name is Robin Harrison, and I'm here, as ever, with the little John to my Robin Hood. A nice, easy one this week, Mr. Ed Birkin.
Hello, Robin. I would like to say I am more your right arm to your left arm, i.e., the one of yours that actually is useful and does stuff, rather than is just kind of strapped to your chest and a bit useless. There for visuals rather than action.
Well,
For those of you
once
not watching on YouTube, Robin has his arm slung to his chest, having had a shoulder operation, and is stoically battling through the pain.
I have, and despite that, I am here once again for this podcast.
Can I say, now you've got a couple of pictures up and a couple of flowers in there, it looks more like a room than the dungeon.
What I think we're getting there.
Yeah,
It's starting to come together.
Still need a lampshade, but it's okay.
That'll come in time. Come in time. At the moment, I'm not in a position to put a lampshade on because I can't lift my left arm for a few more weeks. I've got to keep it immobile for the best part of a month.
Okay.
But despite that, the things going on in the industry this week have
let's get straight into it. Let's get straight into it. This is going to be a UK budget podcast special. Because from one side, people are probably bored of hearing about it. But on the other side, most of what's been taught, put on LinkedIn and stuff like that, is just opinionated bullshit without any analysis. That could be proven right, could be proven wrong. Whereas I actually sat down and wrote an 8-page note on it.
You did. And that went out exclusively to readers of iGamingBusiness.com, did it not?
I hope so. I haven't been on your website, but I'm kind of hoping you help distribute it, because I haven't written a note like that since I was an analyst a decade ago. And I thought, You know what? Let's just actually show something. Because we'll get into it. I think a lot of people will think it's crap, because the general view is that, the regulator market is completely screwed and the black market is going to take over. I mean, I saw one comment on LinkedIn. I'm not calling out the name because I don't remember who it was anyway. They said, the UK market is going to be, is going to have 50%, black market penetration like Portugal. And I'm thinking, well, first of all, Portugal doesn't have 50% black market penetration. And secondly, no, it's not. It's not. It's not great for the industry, but doomsday scenarios that people are putting out there based on no analysis, it just frustrates me.
Well, I would hope you've got some robust data to back up that claim.
Yeah, let's before I go into my reams. And by the way, the note is available on that, or also on the H2 website on the news bit. It is available to non-subscribers. So the idea being, you may completely disagree with it. We will see in 3 years' time if it's remotely right or not. But at least we've walked through all of our assumptions, and then people go, okay, well, actually, I disagree with that bit, and and put some analysis rather than just coming up with a finger in the air number. However, let's look at the wider picture first. The budget wasn't a disaster for the gambling industry, really, was it? Compared to what it could have been.
Compared to what it could have been, no. I think that's fair. Some elements I thought were interesting, like, taking out any meaningful rise for the land-based sector and then lumping it all in online, and even the way that was presented as online is the biggest source of harm. Therefore, we're going to tax it more. So it's the biggest source of harm, but you see it as a revenue generator. So are you actually doing anything to reduce harm, or are you just looking to leverage that to make more money out of it? I mean, let's be honest, that was how it was presented. I've seen there's a lot of campaigners that were very gleeful about this coming through. But where is the actual harm prevention in this? Yes, I suppose they've succeeded in getting more money from the industry, so they've made the industry support the country more. I mean, what have they actually achieved in terms of harm prevention from this?
No, well, they've increased harm as far as I'm concerned, and we'll talk through the data on it. But in fact, I'll read a quote from it and this is.
You're quoting yourself.
I'm quoting the author of this report that may or may not have been myself.
You are quoting yourself. I mean, the megalomania.
So, as I put, we looked at it, and I said, we have little doubt that if the direction of these forecasts materialise, i.e. onshore markets going down, offshore markets going up, we'll all disagree about the level of decline and increase. But If the direction of these forecasts materialise, then a reduction in the onshore market will be viewed by politicians as a major victory. Not only have they been able to curb the size of the brackets onshore online gambling industry, but they have increased tax revenue at the same time. That is how it will be taken, much like in the Netherlands. However, what will be completely ignored will be the at least doubling in size of the illegal market and all the negative implications this has, not least on player welfare. And that's the thing. None of that, and all the industry can shout us blue in the face. But what will inevitably happen from this that everyone agrees with is the size of the onshore market will go down. The amount of money generated from remote gaming duty will increase. Now, I'm going to go on a minute about people saying tax take will go down. Maybe they're talking about overall tax take in the market. But for machine gaming duty tax to go down, given it has pretty much doubled in rate, that means you're saying the onshore market is going to halve. Right. I just do not know how anyone can honestly believe that. And if anyone does, fine. But you'll be proven that is not going to be the case. Okay, it is not going to halve in my view, and not even close. So the remote gaming duty itself, and talk about other bits like employee costs as people go, will increase. Just as in Illinois, when they put the tax rate up to 51%. Oh, so 40, 50% of it went up. That increased in revenues, in tax take. So tax take will increase and the onshore market size will go down. They'll ignore the black market, and this will be seen in 3-4 years' time as a victory by the politicians and by campaigners for the anti-gambling industry, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's fair to say, yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with you on that. And
it's just whether unlike the KSA in Netherlands, we keep coming back to, that calls out the government and politicians and says, what you've done is create a huge illegal gambling industry, and you shouldn't be using tax policy. I do not believe the UK Gambling Commission will do that. They will say, they've acknowledged the black market exists now, which at least they didn't really before. But
they actually argued under the previous CEO that the black market was being overstated to support industry goals. So there has been a sea change there, in that now you see the Gambling Commission putting out a fairly reasoned study on what the black market size could actually be, but without really reaching any kind of firm conclusions on it. So I do think, in the regulator's defence, there is definitely an acknowledgement that it is there.
Yeah. Now, so then Evoke put out a report, and so they said, we believe the overall level of tax that the regulated industry pays in the UK will decline. Okay. Now, again, so they're not saying the remote gaming duty, because again, I think that is just absurd, quite frankly, to even countenance that the market is going to halve. But they're talking about, cutting other costs, so reducing employment. Let's be honest, a lot of employment of online gaming industry isn't in the UK, to be fair. It's lots in
even less so now.
Yeah, but I mean, there is some, so that will impact it. Marketing costs and the flow through. So that will impact it. But they're also talking about shutting, part to mitigate the costs, they're talking about shutting retail store closures, which I thought was a strange one because retail stores haven't been impacted by this at all. Machine gaming duty has stayed the same. Retail betting duty has stayed the same. And so I get, I think that's a victory because, horse racing has lobbied pretty hard. And I think they've got the point across that, yes, machines may not be horse racing, but if you put up machine gaming duty, betting shops turn unprofitable, therefore fewer betting shops, less money on horse racing. So look, I think you've got to at some point just take the win here, the little crumbs of victory. But surely if you're spending more on online marketing, etc., then that's where your retail estate becomes even more valuable as like an omni-channel offering, no?
It's good. It's a physical presence. It's a brand presence, isn't it?
Yeah, so I don't get. I appreciate there could be some loss-making shops that they're keeping open, and now they're saying we can't afford to do that because of the online's less profitable, or maybe they're saying that the customers you sign up in the shops are no longer as valuable online customers now, and therefore we get rid of it. But I don't know. It seems a bit strange to view this budget as leading to significant retail store closures. I mean, they've been trimming around the edges for years. Everyone has. The number of retail stores has been going down. It's like 10th consecutive year of gaming machine declines in retail stores, etc. So I don't really see how this is going to have a big impact on retail. But clearly, according to folks, they think it's going to lead to them closing stores, which I thought. So that's the only way I can see how it would lead to an overall tax take for the industry. But in terms of machine gaming duty tax going down, I just think that's beyond absurd.
Okay. And you mentioned marketing there. One thing in the run up to I mean, this is kind of going back to one of our favourite themes about statistics being kind of misused or distorted. There was something that I saw, might have been the weekend before, just the weekend before, the budget came out on Tuesday.
So
There
by
was
the time this podcast goes out, about a month and a half ago, yeah?
yeah, sometime in 2025, like before ICE, probably
Yeah,
when this
okay.
comes
Yeah, yeah.
out. They talked about gambling advertising spend. And he said it was something, this article claimed it was 2 billion, but then said it could also be as high as 2.5. And, it might have just been the first draft of the article going up, but there was no link to the survey that claimed this, which I found really interesting. And then the industry, and at the bottom, it chucked in a few more sources saying the industry says it's probably kind of like 1 billion, 1.2, maybe 1.5. But it's just the distortive facts in this make it very difficult to really kind of ascertain the impact, because we've had a lot of talk about advertising spend going down, and yet...
Well, let's just put some figures into context, because talking about like 2 billion, 1 billion, 2.5. So if you look at the fiscal year, in fairness, that doesn't include horse race bettings. If you look at the fiscal year numbers reported by the Gambling Commission, which came out actually the same day as the budget, so we never looked.
Okay.
That puts the GGY, so they report after effective operator revenue, so after bonuses. The online betting and iGaming 7.8 billion. Okay, so if you're saying, let's say, advertising budget's about 20% of that, I know they used to be higher back in the day, but I think that's a fair estimate. That would put it at 1.56 billion. Now, I'd imagine maybe some of the bigger operators, like for 365 or someone, they probably actually don't even have to spend that much on it. So, you could go, let's average it at 17.5%, for instance. That would put it at 1.36. So I think that kind of, my point being that 1.5 billion probably seems a fairer benchmark than, I mean, if you're doing 2.5, I mean, there is no way, in my view, that the average marketing spend is 36%, which would be 2.5 billion, like of GGY. I know it'd be less of GGR, but of the operator revenue. I mean, if you look at the tax rates, 20% on top of that, it's just, they're not be spending over 55%. So yeah, put back to a long way around. If you want it to be data heavy, back of the envelope figures suggest maybe about 1.5 billion.
So in terms of cutting that sum, because you mentioned there, some of the more established brands, they probably don't need to put as much as 20% of a GGY into advertising and marketing and acquiring customers.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so no, I'm just really kind of, I suppose what I'm kind of curious about is the mitigation measures that people will take. You've already kind of talked about closing shops seems like an odd move. There's been a lot of talk about reducing marketing.
Yeah, reducing marketing, reducing bonuses. So, okay, I'll just quickly run through some headline figures, and I think, well, let's just say what the OBR have said. So the OBR, Office of Budget Responsibility, they are effectively, I've got another quote, but this is from them. They are the what do they call themselves? As the independent and authoritative analysis of the UK's public finances. So they have said that the change in tax, which is effectively fourfold, you've got the increase in remote gaming duty, iGaming, from 21% to 40% in April 26. The increase in online sports betting, not horse racing, from 15% to 25% in April 27. You have the abolition of land-based bingo duty, which is only 25 million. So we can kind of take that out of the figures.
Small fry.
And you have the tax effective thresholds for land-based casinos are staying static for a year. Again, that you can just kind of say offset the bingo. So effectively, the data released by the OBR can be taken as a proxy for the impact of the machine gaming, the remote gaming duty, and the sports betting. So they have said that let's say we take fiscal year 28. April 27 to March 28, the year that has both the sports and the gaming duty, statically, just by increasing the tax rate on the same market size, it would make 1.6 billion of extra revenue. However, just over 500 million would come off that because of behavioural effect, and that acknowledge that is people spending less because operators will change their pricing and it'll be less good value, and also that people will some will move to illegal operators. So the net benefit will be 1.1 billion. So that's what they've come out. So they acknowledge that not all of this will be passed straight through. Top line, our figures are we get just about to that 1.6 billion from the static bit, kind of 1.55, of which we've actually got 1.35 from iGaming, only 200 million from sports betting. However, when we run through what's going to happen in terms of bonusing, what's going to happen in terms of GGY, so affecting net revenue decline, etc., we think there's going to be it's actually going to be nearer 800 million that comes off. So rather than being left with 1.1, you're going to be left with about 0.8 billion, 800 million extra tax revenue. So that's why I say I do not believe that the direct tax from this take will go down. I think that is just too hard to believe. But
so tax take won't go down.
It won't go down.
The ultimate, the sum
OBR,
that the OBR.
The OBR have said that about a third of it, but broadly they said about a third of the tax increase they won't get in because of market shrinkage. And we're saying we think about half of it won't come in because of market shrinkage. Now, they can go, I'm not going to bore everyone with all the details, but for instance, how this works in terms of bonusing, we've got it reduced. In terms of underlying GGY after bonusing, got it reduced. Ballpark figures, less if you're looking at the iGaming, we have the iGaming GGR declining by 25%.
Right.
But the GGY is in net revenue declining by 16%. Because you are obviously the bonuses. Now the problem is you pay tax. You pay tax on the GGR. So the actual decline in net revenue for the operators is lower than the GGR. And sports, you're looking at about half that. It's got about 8% GGY decline, 11% GGR decline. So overall, total online market, 22% decline in GGR because of this tax increase for onshore, but 14% decline for operator revenue. Now, the decline in GGY is ballpark the kind of level of the percentage point increase in tax revenue, which we think is a pretty fair starting point until we have more data. Some people, you can easily go, it's going to be down like 30, 40%. Fine, maybe your estimate. But these numbers, obviously to me seem the kind of realistic. It's going to hurt the market. The problem is it's going to hurt the smaller players more when we look at it. And I also don't think that there's some numbers we've seen out there for bonusing for iGaming. I mean, I just don't think the iGaming bonusing in the UK is actually as high as some people have quoted, like mid-20s. I just don't believe that. If you look at the remote gaming duty it implies it's about 12%. We've got it actually at I think about 16.8, and then we've got it 16.8, and then we have it going down to 7.2. So I'm not sure there's quite as much bonusing as some people think in the market. So a lot of big guys don't bonus anywhere near that. But I was doing some back of the envelope figures. And do you know how many online gaming licensed operators there are in the UK? Entities. So like Evoke would have multiple ones.
Right. Okay. Close to 1,000.
No, but so on the latest gambling commission and stuff, it's interesting. You see somewhere there's over 2,500 or 2,000 licensed operators.
Yeah, but
in terms of online,
that covers all channels. So I thought kind of online it was like half
online.
of that.
iGaming is 582, and online betting is 175. Now some of these operators will be across both
600-700.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously a lot of the betting will have iGaming. So let's say 600, 650. But if we then look, if we look at the fiscal year 25 iGaming GGR as reported by the Gambling Commission. And we look at the split between large and small operators. So by large, I'm talking about, effectively including their Flutter, Vogue, Pain, 365. I think we've got Kindred, Gamesys, Rank, a couple of others. I don't think we include Betfred should be in there, but we don't have the figures. Okay. But there's a handful, and what they make up of the market that we know. And then you look at the smaller operators. Again, this will be, I know a number of them will have multiple brands that may multiple operators, so groups wise be different, but you're still looking about 575 of the smaller ones. If you look at the GGR they are generating, and then you take off the current, so you then apply the 40% remote gaming duty tax and take off the current bonusing, so this is without mitigation, so you take off their GGY, their post-tax GGY, so their net revenue after paying gambling tax works out about 1.3 million per licensee. There's not a lot to go around. And so I think you are going to see a lot of exits of the market. But, if you have, if you've got the biggest operators generating, few hundred million on on iGaming, you lose 50 people making a million each, it'll have an impact on the market, but the number of operators in the market is completely different to the amount of revenue. And that's why all the big ones have actually come out and said part of their mitigation is they believe they'll be able to take market share. So yeah, so I don't say our numbers are that half of this tax is going to come through, increase will come through as tax take, and half will be mitigated by behavioural change. Then in terms of the illegal market, we think the Netherlands is the best example. The increase in tax recently probably hasn't been the main driver of the onshore market decline. It's contributed, but it was deposit limits, but still regulatory change, onshore market increasing, decreasing, offshore increasing. So we looked at the growth in the offshore versus the decline in the onshore, shows about 57% on our numbers, 57% of decrease in onshore spend shifted offshore. Some people play less, some people move offshore. Yeah. The number's going to be between 0 and 100. Not everyone, with the deposit limit, not everyone's going to go offshore. Yep. If you're getting lower bonuses, not everyone's going to go offshore. Some will just pay less. We said, right, 55% of GGY, not GGR, will go offshore. So we've been very conservative here. Onshore GGR, all else equal, we've got it falling by 2 billion pounds because of this. 2 billion pounds down. Now that 55%, GGY is only down 1.13. So we've taken 55% of GGY. Long story short, offshore GGR more than doubles and grows by 800 million. Now, you could quite easily say, and there's nothing wrong with this, we'll put the 55% on the 2 billion, in which case the offshore market will grow again up by another 300 million or so to 1.1, 1.2 billion. So we've been pretty conservative on this in terms of what's going offshore, but we have it more than doubling. So net, we have channelization falling to 84% in the UK, 80% for iGaming channelization, and 93% still for betting. Now, again, I know there's a lot of people who will say those numbers are far too high, they're far too high. That's fine, but that's why I've laid it all out over 8 pages so you can go, okay, these are the starting figures that we know are correct from the Gambling Commission. This is our initial analysis of the static increase, which, is ballpark in line with the ABR, so we're pretty happy with that. So you play around the assumptions as well. How much do you think the onshore market is going to fall by? How much of that's going to go to the offshore market? It's not 100%. It never will be. And then if you're saying that 50% is going to be illegal, you try and make those numbers fit within an analytical framework that I provided to actually get to that, because you having to put in some pretty extreme assumptions to get there. Let people judge. I know the headline figures, people are going to say, it's far too positive, but we will see.
Wow. Well, that's a challenge to the industry. Go out and prove Ed wrong.
Well, they won't prove that. The only way to be proved wrong is what we see in 3 years' time. And actually, this is where,
of course,
this is where I, probably this isn't great for, upsetting all our subscriber base, but I'm not sure the industry's response to this is being, I think it needs to be careful how it responds, because whining about this now is not going to change. They're not going to reverse any of this, are they?
No. I mean, let's face it. We've said it before. This is a new world order.
So if you start putting out stuff like regulated tax revenue is going to decline, which they may overall. This depends what you do. If you're going to shut your entire retail estate, then yeah. But people who are actually, some people are saying, black market is going to be at 50%. I know not everyone's saying that stuff, but you go too much, then at the end of the day, in 3 years' time, we're going to know what happens. And at some point, there's going to be more regulatory push against the industry. This isn't over. It's going to continue to creep. And if I'm the politicians then, or the Gambling Commission, and I go, well, we did this, and you told us everything was going to be a disaster, and it wasn't. So we want to do this, and now you're telling me everything's going to be a disaster. Well, you've already cried wolf. It's fine to say, use it as a lobbying thing before it's happened, as a disaster. But now it's happened. I think the only thing there's no upside to really, you don't want to just lay back and go, it's fine. You want to make a bit of a fuss about it. But I think if you go too far, or at least too doomsday scenario, then you go, well, they're not going to change. There's no upside because they're not going to reverse what they've done. And there is a downside because they can look back on it, and you may not care about the future now, but 3 years is not very far away. And when they do the next push, go, well, hang on, you told us that when we increased remote gaming duty, that the tax take was going to go down. Well, that clearly hasn't happened. So why should we believe you that the tax take is going to go down if we increase betting duty more? It's a tough line to tread, and I'm not saying they shouldn't complain about it, but I think you need to be really careful about forecasting doomsday scenarios, because it's just going to give you less leverage going. It's going to weaken any argument you have going forward.
Yeah. I think that's fair to say. And I mean, look, in these situations, the only real kind of way, I mean, the thing that you never see is you never see people voting with their feet from a mature market. Like, you look back at Illinois, everyone said they'd have to leave that market because of the tax hike. No one did. And people
Yeah.
look at that, like, unless the threats are followed, the threats are followed through on, it's just going to ring hollow.
Yeah, and that's exactly it.
And
Ring hollow. And yeah, and people, I get people should put out, yes, we're disappointed with this. Yes, it's going to be an issue, but don't overstate it, because if anything, understate it. Because what happens in 3 years' time is going to happen in 3 years' time, yeah, or 2 years' time,
yeah.
whenever you're going to measure it. Okay, so if you're like, oh, we told you it's going to impact us, and it's impacted us even more, crap, this is, you really need to listen to us. But if you say, oh, we said it was going to kill the industry, and it hasn't killed the industry, the next time we say it's going to kill the industry, then they go, well, boy, you cried
Mhm.
wolf.
Well, I think one of the responses that I thought was actually quite effective was a supergroup. Neil Monash said that he supports kind of like reasonable taxation of the industry. Not saying that he was calling a 40% rate reasonable, but he also said this creates a risk of black market growth. What are we doing to stop that happening? Because as ever, with these things, there's always scope for leakage to the black market. The black market is, let's face it, depending on what you actually decide that it constitutes. And I know we got into the weeds in that last week after some judicious editing to cut out the slightly more incriminating or libelous bits. But it's this bit is always just forgotten about.
Yeah,
And
and I think hopefully you're going to put up an image on our actual thing. But yeah, as you will now see on screen, perhaps, these are our forecasts for the overall market and the channelization. The channelization is changing a lot. But again, I don't think you need to go overboard. Let's look at I'll just shut it down now. But if I look at what we're saying for the illegal, offshore, illegal, let's be honest, black market, 2020 calendar 27. So we take into it, well, it's going to be 1.3 billion of gross gaming yield. That's actually customer losses. So suddenly you're going to go, well, actually, we're going to times that by, or divided by 0.8 or something. That's like 1.65 billion of GGR. That is a big number. If you're looking in terms of tax revenue lost, that is, what's the average tax going to be now? About 36%. That's 600 million of tax revenue. That's one of those. I guarantee almost everyone listening to by what people say on LinkedIn, and you hear all the other talks, say that number's far too low. It's going to be 70% channelization, 60%. But I don't think you need to go. There are numbers here that are very sensible that are still like, wow, this is a big problem. You don't have to be going out there and saying it's going to be 50% channelization. You think for people to listen or see what a problem it is. I mean, this is
no,
still a
because
big number.
if it's a 1.6 billion market, that's a scarily big market.
Yeah, but
That's
people just
that's untaxed. It's not protecting players. All the stuff that
I
we
just feel now we're at a
ostensibly
point
want.
where, yeah, unless people are saying it's like 50% channelization, it's almost as if no one's going to care about the black market unless we say it's that big. But I mean,
Well,
look,
this is one of the things. I mean, like on one level, you want people to understand the scale and the danger that it presents, but I worry that sometimes the numbers just become too abstract.
yeah. I mean, above a certain level, no one cares. Like you can say 50% channelization and all that, but if you told someone there's the black market is 200 million being spent abroad with illegal operators. That seems like a big number. A billion. Okay, that's a big number. 5 billion. Like, once you get to those levels, no one can really comprehend the difference between a billion and 5 billion.
Yeah,
It's just a shitload of money.
it's
So why are
big,
you
and
doing stuff?
that's
Yeah, but then to say numbers that don't really make any difference in terms of people going, okay, that's a big number, but that you clearly cannot back up. You find me operators who are making a billion, 5 billion of revenues from the UK in 3 years' time. Like
yeah.
the gambling
No,
commission on that great at black market blocking. No regulator is, but come on. You can't keep it if you're making that much money. So let's say the black market's 50%. And so you go, okay, right, the black market's going to be around, onshore has to go down more. So let's say it's around 4 billion, 5 billion for the sake of argument. Okay. GGR. Yeah, it'd have to be that, at least that. So 5 billion GGR. Okay. And that assumes a big cut to the onshore. You are probably going to have, bearing in mind the weighting of market share, you're going to have an operator that's got at least 10%, but probably nearer 20% of that. So you're going to have an operator that is making the best part of £1 billion from the UK market that isn't shut down. That's sticking it. That's proper head above the parapet stuff. This isn't someone making like 5 million on the sly. It's I don't get it.
But that is a good time to stop for this episode, I think.
Yeah.
It's been
I don't think we've insulted anyone too much.
I don't think we have. It's been I thought we've actually, for the first time in a while, had some really good data. I suppose we've gone a bit more kind of news driven recently. So
yeah, we're just trying to be informative. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I think this will be a good one because it will actually give some analysis. And as I say, I'm expecting most people to disagree with it. But instead of just disagreeing with the headline numbers, look at the analysis and go, okay, well, this is where I think it's going to change. And then you know what? We'll see in 3 years' time.
Yeah, we will see in 3 years' time.
And because let's be honest, one thing for them is I know the black market are innovative, but so are the regulated players. Flutter and people, they didn't get this, I know, acquisitions, but look at the individual brands like Paddy Power and stuff. They're good operators. They'll take a hit. I mean, poor Rank, they paid, they say something like 180 million in taxes. They made 44 million of profit last year, and this is going to hit them with another 40 million of tax. It's pretty much wiping out their profit. I know there'll be mitigation, and I may have misremembered a couple of those numbers. But, it'll be tough. It'll be painful for people, and it's not great. I'm not saying this is like a good budget. I think it could have been worse, and it will be painful, and the black market is going to more than double in size, and it's really bad for everyone, and the onshore market will decline. But, I also have confidence that operators are innovative. They're good. The guys who operate in the UK onshore, not all of them, not all 572, whatever.
No.
But some of them are pretty damn good. They're good.
A lot of them are very good, and there are some good up-and-coming brands. Obviously, they're going to be life's going to be more difficult, but this is a resilient industry.
Can I, on that, talking about marketing and good brands, can I call out what I think is an absolutely brilliant gambling advert and an absolutely terrible gambling advert, because they're both by the same company?
Okay.
I'm going to tell you. So the Paddy Power betting one with Super Sub, and at the end, so he's getting an award, is like the Ballon d'Or, but the kind of golden sub. Okay?
Yeah, and the statue with the high vest.
Yeah. And Peter Crouch goes, I was a super sub. And Teddy Sheringham goes, no, you weren't. I think that is just brilliant. Makes you chuckle, very clever. I just love it. And then when I saw their casino one with Danny Dyer, I mean, I
like
just
that
thought
advert.
it was terrible.
I like that
Absolutely
advert.
Shocking, going to the lowest. Gemma Collins, Lean Rooney, whatever her name is, was part of the thingy of Rebecca Vardy. I mean, it would make me.
I thought it was a great advert.
It would make me stop. It would make me stop playing that casino product. I thought it was that bad. But there you go. I thought it's the worst advert ever, and you like it.
Yeah.
And I thought the Peter Crouch one was brilliant.
Yeah.
And you were like, yeah.
No,
I just loved it. Yeah, the Teddy Sheringham bit. I was a super sub. No, you weren't, mate.
They were both, in my eyes, they were both good adverts, but neither of them are as good as. It was Carlton Palmer in the bath and Des Walker in the wardrobe when he just keeps signing the shirts. And the guy's getting increasingly pissed off. It's like, Des, I've got work in the morning. Des, that's enough. That's enough.
2 Wednesday nights.
Yeah, you're going to merge with Sheffield United, apparently. So on that note, thank you very much for listening. We hope you found it informative. And if you found it aggravating, get in touch. Come on.
Get in touch with IGB, not H2.
Get in touch with H2 Gambling Capital. I'll put Ed's email address in the description of this episode. All right.
Robin.Harrison@igb.com. Guessing.
That is not actually my email.
Okay. Right.
All right.
Talk about happy ending. Awesome. We've nailed it. Until
Enjoy
next
the
week.
next one.